Bold and raw perspectives of local politics. Important information which impacts our community, nation, and world. Exposing truth, transparency, and getting to the heart of relevant issues that you just won't see in the clickbait media. And always keeping it real. It's the Michelle Tanner Podcast.
But I won't back down.
Hello, everyone. I think we are live. It's been a few months, actually, since I've been in this studio. It's been remodeled. It looks beautiful. So good work to button pusher guy Sean over there, who actually does a lot. I am really thankful because I have zero desire to be tech savvy, and he gets all of this uploaded onto all the different platforms, gets all the video and audio, and hopefully gets like my good side on camera. So anyway, it's really, really great to be back. I have missed you guys this summer. I had lots of fun travels with the family, and then I've been cracking the whip at Sean over here to get back to work. So we're finally here, and I'm super excited for my guest today. I have with me sitting here the Larry Meyers, and anyone who has been involved in Utah politics, I'll bet you know Larry Meyers, but we'll let him talk a little bit about his background. Larry is an attorney down here in southern Utah, and actually, I first got to know Larry when I started getting involved in Utah politics back in 2020 when all the craziness was going on. And Larry was one of few people that I'm like, man, this guy's not just talking, he's actually doing. He's actually bringing people together and making stuff happen. So I've got a lot of respect for you, Larry. Thanks for coming on today.
Well, thank you for having me, Michelle. It's an honor to be here. Exciting to be on the new and improved edition. We'll see how improved it is by the end. So.
Right? Yeah.
But thank you for having me. And we've done a lot of good things over the years, and it's been good to associate with you on a lot of local issues. So I'm excited to talk, answer questions, and share some ideas.
Yeah, awesome. So you are currently running actually for Washington County School Board. So that election is coming up quick. I mean, we're like just, a couple of weeks out from that?
Yeah, the ballots should be going out soon. I'm running in District 1 for the local school board, which just means Washington County. That includes Santa Clara, Ivins, and a lot of the smaller communities along State Road 18 up to Enterprise and also Gunlock, so kind of the northwest corner of the county. And so it's a great area. We've lived there for over 20 years. We're in Winchester Hills, my wife and I, and we love this area. And excuse me, I'm a little plugged up here, but it'll be a great opportunity to serve if that's what the people want. And so I figured throw my hat in the ring on an open seat and see what happens.
Yeah, well, thanks for being willing to do that, because those positions, those school board positions, I mean, going back to 2020 and really my whole entrance into the political world, one of my first key issues was the masks, the mandates in our schools. And I was so frustrated. We did have one school board member, shout out to Terry Hutchinson, who was, pretty vocal about, wanting to repeal that and, even talking about suing the state if we had to, which I really appreciated that bold stance on that. But so many were silent during that time. And we've seen issues since even come about with pornography in schools. And so maybe talk about what inspired you to get involved in this position in particular.
Yeah, I was heavily involved in 2020. I'm sure we were both there at a lot of those meetings and times when we had a chance to speak up on this issue. And I was deeply concerned. I actually ended up running that year as a write-in candidate for the same position.
Oh, okay.
They redistricted, and so it was District 2 back then that I was in, and they switched me over to District 1. But I ran as a write-in just somewhat as a protest to be able to raise those issues of how they were treating parents, how they were treating the children, all these mandates that had been forced on the school. And like you, and I applaud you for being an advocate for health freedom and for parental rights. The things that you've stood for are things that I've believed in and been fighting for many, many years. And so it was great to see someone like you step forward that's so knowledgeable and articulate and jump into the fight. And so, yeah, that's part of what led me to run for this position was the concern that our school board really went along with all of that stuff. I mean, I understand they felt like they didn't have much choice. They felt like, hey, we're under pressure. The governor's telling us we have to do these things. We have to force the children to wear masks, et cetera, et cetera. If we don't, they're going to shut us down. But the research I did was that the governor really didn't have the authority to do that, and that the authority to keep the schools open and how they actually enforce those rules was within our local jurisdiction. I believe that our school board is elected officials to represent the people, and we would be the ones that would apply those rules. And so they certainly freely could have granted exceptions. They could have respected parental rights when parents didn't want their children to be masked and those types of things. And so it was good that people like you and many other of us went down there. We protested, we petitioned, and we put a lot of heat on the board to try to do the right thing. And I think they kind of got the message that they better be careful. But there's still a lot of change that has to be made. That's just one issue. There's pornography in the schools that we've been fighting. There's the issues with different political agendas that are being pushed nationwide, coming from very left-wing groups, trying to infiltrate our schools and turn our children into social justice warriors.
Right.
There's issues with teachers, make sure that teachers are teaching the appropriate subjects, issues with too much administration, issues with federal funds, how much money, how much control the federal government has, unconstitutional federal agency, the Department of Education, that we should get rid of, dictating so much. So all those things lead me to put myself forward. It's not that I want to be in a position of power. I think most of us would be happy to just relax and enjoy life, take a trip to Greece,
Right.
like the button pushers. Yeah. I mean, that would be fantastic. But nobody would step forward. I asked around, hey, would you run? Would you run? And nobody would. And so at the last day, the only person that had filed was my opponent, and she's a great lady. But I believe in competition, and I've got a message I want to share, and I think I can give good service. So I went ahead and filed, and happy to talk to people about that and answer questions further.
Yeah, thanks for being willing to put your hat in the ring because, yeah, like you said, I think oftentimes people look at, quote, politicians as these just power hungry, ego driven. They're making all this money behind the scenes. And hey, I'm not saying that's not true at the federal level, especially, but I will tell you at these local level positions and even a lot of the state level positions, are there maybe a few bad actors that are getting kickbacks behind the scenes? Sure. I don't doubt that for, 2 seconds. But the majority of people willing to step up, they are good, solid people who are, in a lot of cases, volunteering their time. They're not even getting paid for these positions. Or if they are getting paid, it's very minimal. And, they're probably losing money actually from the time they're taking away from their actual job or career that actually earns income. So I think it's really admirable when people are willing to step forward and say, okay, nobody else is willing to do it. So if not me, who, right?
Well, I think you and I are at the low level of the food chain there. A city council member, you're not making money. You're just taking a lot of grief,
Right.
serving on a city council. And it's pretty much the same with the school board. You're never going to satisfy everybody. I say I'm for parents, but I'm sure there'd be parents coming to me saying, hey, I want this, this, and this. I'm going to have to say, hey, I respect your rights as a parent, but I can't give you that, and that. We don't have the money for it. That's not the proper role of the school district. And so local politics and local offices, I think you're right. There's a lot of grief and not a lot of glory involved, and I'm glad that people are willing to serve. the higher up you go, I think the dollars and the pressure and the power seem to get bigger and bigger. I know one of the concerns we have in the governor's race right now here in Utah is people who get appointed to these high-paid positions that are, so to speak, cronies of the governor and, not in political alignment with his supposed Republican philosophy. And so that's frustrating. And people who go to Congress and then afterwards become lobbyists and make millions of dollars. It's frustrating to see people cash in. And I think my service has been the opposite. I've been an attorney working hard, going to the office every day, taking care of my clients for, I guess, since 1995 when I graduated from BYU Law School. I've been working hard to pay my own way in this world. And I don't expect the government to pay my way. I don't expect to get rich off of politics. I do this because of the principles that I believe in, the principles of a conservative, constitutional government.
Amen. And your graduating law class, by the way, like you had some big names. I mean, you had some pretty, it wasn't Mike Lee in your
He
cohort
was actually,
and Sean Guzman. And I swear every time I meet an attorney, oh yeah, we went to law school with Larry Meyers.
Well, they probably say I went to law school with Mike Lee or with Sean Guzman. But yeah, Sean was in my class, and,
Okay.
and we've been good friends ever since. We don't see each other much anymore just because we're both busy. But yeah, we were in the same class. Mike was 2 years behind us.
Okay.
So I only had 1 year in law school with Mike, but we did work together. At the time, I was helping establish a Federalist Society organization at the BYU Law School because they didn't have one. And for those who know or don't know, the Federalist Society is a nationwide organization of attorneys and law students who support the conservative philosophy and constitutional government. And they've been pretty influential in helping conservative presidents to select judges and things like that. And so it was a cool thing that we were able to establish that. And once I graduated, Mike Lee helped get that firmly established there at
Oh, that's
BYU.
awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we've been on very good terms since then, and I appreciate a lot of the good things that he's done.
Yeah, and we were talking a little bit before we got on air about your extensive involvement in Utah politics, which it sounds like even going back to law school with starting that, helping to get that organization implemented here, and then you're part of some other PACs. Maybe touch on some of your history and being involved here in Utah.
Yeah, I can give you a brief overview. The whole story would be pretty long and boring. I wish I could say it was a story of success because I've been battling in the trenches for many years, and we get frustrated because things don't seem to change. We just keep getting bigger government, more spending, more violations of our rights, and so it's definitely frustrating. But yeah, ever since I was young, I was interested in government. I read books about the founding fathers, about the early presidents of the United States, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and I was really inspired by those. I wanted to be involved in government. I wanted to be involved in law. And so since after law school, I started getting involved with the Republican Party. And when we came here to St. George in 1996, I began to attend the caucuses and be involved as a delegate with the Republican Party. And eventually I've been able to serve in different Republican Party positions and on the executive committee, on the state central committee. I've been a national delegate 3 times.
Awesome.
Three different times, including most recently for Donald Trump. And I'm very pleased that I was able to do that. So I've had a lot of involvement with the party, but I've also run for office. I've run for the legislature. I've run for county attorney. I've run for county commissioner. So I probably shouldn't confess all this.
Hey, no one can accuse you of not being involved, though, and willing to step up.
A lot of people got to know me in 2018 statewide because I announced I was running against Orrin Hatch.
Oh, okay.
But within a week, Hatch dropped out, and Romney said, I'm running.
Oh, gotcha.
So I stayed in that race, and I traveled the whole state, visited nearly every county, got to know a lot of great people around the state, and I felt like I gave a pretty decent speech at the convention. And I came in third after Kennedy, Romney, Meyers. And I was actually very happy that I was done because it was way too much work and I didn't have the money to afford it. Let a great guy like Mike Kennedy run that primary against Romney. And made friendships that have lasted to this day from that. So it's a great experience, but unless you want to spend a lot of time and money, I don't recommend running for a statewide office. It's
so true.
Pretty intense. So out of that arose a few other things. We had an organization called the Republican Assembly, which was a statewide organization. We had the Dixie Republican Forum here locally to try to get conservatives united in the Republican Party. We started the Platform Republicans PAC, which is a political action committee to raise money for mostly legislative candidates for the Utah legislature statewide. And so we've been able to endorse and make donations to candidates for the last 4 years in the legislative races. If people want to check out our website on that, it's platformrepublican.com, no S on the end, just platformrepublican.com, and they can see what the PAC has been doing and our endorsements. We had a pretty good year this year. A lot of the candidates we endorsed ended up getting elected, and a few tough losses, including Chad Benyon here locally. We supported him strongly. So yeah, I've been involved in campaigns, the Republican Party, local, what do they call that? Like Obama, a community activist.
Community, there you go, community activist. I like that.
And one more follow-up. You mentioned the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
I believe I was the first one to organize an anti-mandate rally in Utah. It was about the middle of April of 2020, and we met at the county building with about 100 of us, and we walked around the block a couple times without masks on and holding our flag.
I remember that.
So if you were there, I think that was the first, because that was even before Eric Moutsos had the rally.
Yeah, that was really early on. In fact, I wasn't there. I didn't know about it until I actually saw a Facebook Live from someone who was there. And that was still so early on. And I can even remember myself I was supportive of you guys doing that for sure. But there was like so many unknowns at the time. And I'm so glad, though, that that just shows the principled person that you are and that's what we need at all levels of government, because you made mention earlier of, you might not make everybody happy when you're in an elected position, because sometimes you have to say no, or there's certain things that you just can't do. And that's why it's so vital that we're running everything through this lens of what is the proper role of government? What should we be doing? Because there's always going to be, good ideas or friends who, want you to do certain things, but you've got to be principled in that approach. And I definitely see that in you.
Well, it is interesting to see how many people who they're good people. I think they have good principles, but when they're faced with fear or pressure or lose their job, you can relate to that, that they're going to fold and they're just going to do whatever the government tells them they've got to do. And so when I saw the government telling us, we've got to shut down your business, or you've got to force people to wear masks in your business, or you can't do this, you can't gather for Thanksgiving,
right.
or whatever
Insanity.
it is. Don't have your family over for Thanksgiving. I'm like, this isn't right.
Right.
The government can warn us about things that are bad. The government can provide assistance if there's people that are harmed. But we choose whether we wear a mask. We choose whether we open our business. We choose who comes into our business. That's just what liberty is all about. And so I knew from the start that whole COVID thing was wrong.
Yeah.
And of course, there was a lot more involved. I mean, there was the Trump election, there was the vote by mail, there was the protests. All of that stuff was organized, orchestrated.
Yeah. So I would go back and disagree with something you said you said that you wished that your story was that of success. I actually think you're demonstrating right now loads of success. Winning certain elections, which I am rooting for you. I want you to win this school board race because we need people like you on the school board. But looking back at your history of, saying, maybe I should admit running for all these positions, that's not the conclusion, though. That's not the sign of success right there. I'm seeing all of these fruits that have come about because someone like you has been willing to be a voice. And, mentioning that you organized that first rally. I was at an event not too long ago, and the speaker was talking about this experiment that's been done. And, they have a row of 100 people or however many, and they purposefully give the wrong answer. And it's something that's really blatantly false. Like anybody
Everybody
should know
yeah.
that that's the wrong answer. But if every single person gives the wrong answer and they're all in on it, but the person at the end doesn't know, the person at the end will give the wrong answer like 90-something% of the time. However, if you shift that experiment and just one person in that row, just one, somewhere randomly, says the right answer and everybody else says it wrong, those statistics flip. And 90% of the time, that person at the end will state the right answer, even though they're in the minority. It's that one voice often that it takes. And so that's why I say I disagree. I see a high level of success. And especially here in Southern Utah, we can maybe talk a little bit about Liberty Action Coalition, which did that come about through COVID? Because that was kind of my introduction to you. And a lot of others was seeing, wow, here's an organization who's actually gathering and getting together and trying to do things to fight these tyrannical mandates.
Yeah, that did come about through the whole COVID process. And by the way, thank you. Those are kind words. I feel like I, for many years, have tried to model and teach these correct principles of government. And I think I've hopefully educated or helped a few people. But sometimes it's just the circumstances that we live in that wake people up. And COVID in 2020 was a big wake-up call for a lot of people. We have a lot of people involved here locally right now who, if you asked them, when did you get involved in the system, they'd say 2020, because that COVID made me realize that we can't let the government do this to us. So sometimes it's the circumstances, but I'd certainly be happy to be the messenger that helps tell people, hey, this is wrong and this is what we need to do to stand up against it. And that was part of what we did with the Liberty Action Coalition. My friend Patricia Kent, she said, hey, let's get all the people that stand up for liberty together at my house. And so we had a group of about 20 of us that kind of knew each other and had worked together in the past. A lot of old Tea Party people. If you looked around the room, hey, Tea Party. Yeah, we were Tea Party back when Tea Party was cool. And so we said, we've got to fight this. And what should our name be? Well, Liberty. We're standing up for liberty. And what are we going to do? We're going to take action. So we're going to bring people together. We're the Liberty Action Coalition. So people can go to that website too. I don't know that we've updated it lately, but because we're all volunteers and things get done when they get done. But Liberty Action Coalition held a lot of meetings. We brought in speakers. We have a PAC also where we raise money for local candidates. We supported your election. We supported Brad Bennett. We supported Greg Aldred. We've supported a lot of people who've run here locally, and just always been fighting that battle for liberty, that government should stick to the Constitution, should be limited, watch our taxes, watch our spending, and allow people to choose how they want to live their lives. And that's what the Liberty Action Coalition's been about. And I think it's been a pretty successful organization. We haven't been holding a lot of meetings. It tapered off after COVID. We definitely found that when the heat wasn't on, people went back to their normal lives.
Yeah, people are getting lulled back into that sense of security. I actually was just having that conversation yesterday with my husband of, doesn't it kind of feel like people are starting to get lulled into feeling, everything's okay, which I believe we're on the brink of things being extremely not okay. That's a whole other episode.
It wouldn't take much to go in a different direction.
Right.
And we'll see after this November election nationwide what might happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's good though that a lot of people here in our area are willing to take a stand, have come out, they've spoken out, they've gotten involved. We've had great candidates run for office, win or lose. We've gotten involved in the Republican Party particularly, not because we think the Republican Party is great. In fact, we think the Republican Party is very corrupt, but it's the vehicle that we use because it has good principles in the platform, and it's got an organization that we can use to try to get back to where we should be and proper principles.
So I actually want to talk about the Republican Party then, since you brought it up and you've been involved with it for a long time.
I knew you did.
Yeah. And personally, I've only been involved with the Republican Party for the last couple of years. I think I've officially registered as a Republican in 2020. I was always just an independent, and it wasn't until I realized that wake-up call during 2020 of how we have to get involved in these local elections, in these state elections. Who we have representing us absolutely matters in these circumstances if we are going to have any prayer or voice that actually represents we the people. And unfortunately, in this two-party system that we live in, third-party candidates do not win. And so I agree with you that our best hope is to take the Republican Party, which most of us here in the state of Utah, align with that platform the most. And, we take that party and we try to do the best we can within that party to live by that platform and follow those principles and elect people who align with those. And like you said, there's been some infiltration here. Now, I don't think that's every single Republican who doesn't align with me 100% of the time. I think that is where sometimes we go wrong on our side, is when we try to demonize anyone who's not 100% in alignment with us. But yeah, those ones who truly aren't, they should be called out, and we should be trying to work forward and trying to do something about that. So we've seen a lot of division. Not surprisingly, because of really the root cause being SB 54 with this signature pathway, which we've talked on the podcast more in depth about that before. But essentially, it's divided the party, and we're seeing more of the fruits of that now, with having a way to get candidates on the ballot that are not being nominated by the delegates. So just share, how do we move forward from here? Because obviously we're stronger when we're united. How do we come together?
Well, I don't know if that's going to be possible to really come together. What I would say is we invite people that share our philosophy to join with us, and let's do as much as we can. Let's have as much success in establishing good government as we can. But we're not going to compromise in order to try to bring people in who want to do it different, who want to use government for their own benefit, who want to use government to try to hold other people down or back, and so on. Take from one person to give to another is kind of the definition of the tyranny that we're against. And so, I don't know that there's going to be complete unity. But I do think if you look at, let's just start with Washington County, okay? We're about 75% Republican. And that's really not changing much. Even as people come here, many who are coming here are Republicans and they're conservative. And it's because they're getting away from other areas that are pretty bad. And so even though we're having this huge growth, we still are a very strong Republican area. But what you find is a division in the Republican Party between people who just kind of want to do things the way they've always been done, the country club, the establishment, the moderate, they call themselves, or they always call themselves conservative, but they're really moderate. Versus the more principled, the more they might be called right-wing or
the right-wing
extremists. Yes, people who are just, pro-life and pro-gun and pro-family and pro-constitution. It's so extreme.
They want to have Thanksgiving with their family and not have government tell them they can't.
Yeah, it's so extreme. Yeah. So there's been that divide, and it's really not new. It's even before SB 54. I started as a delegate in the Republican Party, getting involved and working on campaigns, even in law school. So that would have been about 1992. So I've seen this since then.
I was 4 or 5 years old. Not to make you feel old or anything, Larry.
I'm getting up there. A little bit of gray, hopefully a little bit of wisdom. But some of the early campaigns that my wife and I were involved with were those same type of conservative candidates that we have now. They don't have enough money. They have a great message. They're running against an incumbent or somebody that's got millions of dollars or big name recognition, a John Huntsman or a Mitt Romney or a Spencer Cox, these type of candidates that are the the more establishment types. And so that division's always going to be there. I just don't see those two sides getting together. We can have peace. We can do this peacefully. But the conservatives have got to get in there. They've got to get elected as delegates. They've got to get elected as chairs and vice chairs in their precincts. They've got to get elected in the party offices. They've got to run for office. They've got to go to the legislature. They've got to get in the governor's office. They got to go to Congress. And they got to fight for these changes that take us back to where we're supposed to be, to less government, more individual responsibility. So I advocate for winning. Winning is rare and hard, but let's win. I'm not for unity at any cost.
Yeah, I'm not for unity at any cost. I think there's ways we can be smarter, though, and we can communicate our message better so that we don't alienate ourselves. And, because you're right, it becomes rare oftentimes for the principled candidate to win. And it's not because they're not the best person for the job, but they're often underfunded. Often their messaging just isn't resonating with people. And I'm not saying that they need to change their principles or message something that's not true, but it's in the way that it's presented on drawing those people. I guess that's what I mean more with unity. There's never going to be 100% unity, but I do think, and we've done a really good job at the grassroots level, like you're saying, because you look at our caucus conventions, and oftentimes the nominees that come out of those conventions are the more solid grassroots conservative candidates.
Yeah, overall this year was very successful in the Republican Party of getting good delegates in, both locally and on the state level, who were standing up for these principles and supporting, after they investigated, they supported the good candidates. And so we really did have overall pretty good success this year. But then when it gets to the primary stage, it's a lot tougher. The ones with the money and
Right.
the name recognition frequently beat those who don't have as much money or as much name recognition. But I think you're right. The message is very important, how we present it. I've always tried to be someone that's civil, to get along with my opponents. Like in my race right now, I told my opponent from the beginning, hey, we're going to have a clean race. I'm not going to say anything bad about you. I tell everybody she's a great lady.
Yeah, and you have.
And I'm running because I think I've got something to offer, but I would never say anything bad about my opponent. And so that's the way it should be. And when we're fighting these battles, I don't think name calling or belittling, telling other people they're stupid, I don't think that gets us anywhere.
Yeah.
If you disagree with someone, that's okay to disagree. Stand up for what you believe in. Come back and fight another day if you lose a battle. It is frustrating, and I understand those who get frustrated and just want to let loose.
Right.
I understand that. I've nearly walked away from the Republican Party several times.
Yeah.
So, I get it. But I think, as you say, and you're a great example of this, Michelle, you've been heavily criticized, you've been attacked, you've had people who would love to get you out of the city council seat you're in, but you are gracious, you are kind, you're understanding, you listen, you take time, you spend time with people, and that's a great example to how conservatives should act and still have great success. So I applaud you for that. We should follow Michelle Tanner's example when we campaign, and we'd probably do better. We'd probably win like you win. So
Well, I appreciate that. It's certainly something that I will fully admit I have not been perfect at. I have learned a lot over these last 4 years of, it's easy sometimes to let fear take over, or, even looking back at COVID was like that mama bear came out, I think, in a lot of us, and it's easy to react. Not that I regret speaking out, and I will always be a loud voice for truth and against
you
government
were always
tyranny.
articulate. I don't remember you ever being inappropriate when you stood
Thank
up
you.
and spoke out.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we're learning from as we go.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy if I was never in elected office, but we just had good government.
Right.
That's all I think most conservatives want. We want just the government to leave us alone and let us live our lives.
Exactly.
But nobody wants to let us do that. They want our money. They want to raise our children for us. They want to tell us how we can use our property, how we can run our businesses. Yeah, and so that's what we're up against, and none of that is good stuff. We're not going to compromise on that. We're not going to let it happen.
Right. And if you disagree, then you're a right-wing extremist.
You're a very mean person to say anything bad about those who want to take away your rights and your property.
Right. But I mean, you have actually been a great example, though, as you mentioned, of that civility. And yeah, we do. We need more of that if we are going to actually win, if we are going to actually make the progress in the right direction. And I actually call the left, not progressive, they are regressives, because they're the ones trying to push us back and hold us back. We're actually the ones trying to make positive progress, because we know that positive progress comes from empowering the individual. We are the best people to make decisions for ourselves, for our families, for our children. So thank you for being willing to be a voice for parents and children in the school board. Did you ever think we would be at a place that we would literally be talking about pornography in elementary schools? We just had a Utah State representative, Sahara Hayes, who's up for re-election right now. Please vote for her opponent, Sarah Montez, because the Sahara literally, and she's like bragging about this online, that she has these books that are so pornographic that they've literally been banned now from schools. I mean, it took legislation to ban pornography. Think about that for a second. Can't believe that it requires legislation to do that. But it's been banned from schools, and she's on film or on camera saying that she's putting these in the little libraries, the free libraries for children. And I mean, this is full-blown pornographic material in these books. Yet I've not heard very many people speaking out about her doing this. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, obviously that type of thing is horrible, and I agree with you. Vote for her opponent.
Yeah.
Did I ever think that we'd get to this point? I would say that anybody who's studied history, people who've studied communism, who've studied socialism, who've seen what the communist plans were to try to take down America and destroy our Constitution, to have us become part of a one-world socialist government. All of this was predicted, and all of this was planned, and it's just been coming forward for many years. It's not like this is brand new. This is just the latest thing that they're putting out there. And so, on the one hand, did we think this would ever happen? No. Who would think that children should be exposed to pornography? We all know it's wrong.
Yeah.
And yet there's a political movement that goes back, who knows, maybe to the beginning of the earth.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe back to the, battle versus good versus evil, Satan, the oppression versus liberty.
Right back to that. But that in our times has manifested itself in a socialism and a communism in which, if they can tear down the morality of the people, if they can separate the children from their parents, if they can get people obsessed with sexuality rather than morality, then it destroys our society. It falls apart. And if they can do that, they can take America down. And we're not going to let that happen. You're not going to let that happen. I'm not going to let that happen. And there's millions of us across this country that aren't going to let that happen.
Amen.
So we're going to stand for our traditional values. We're going to oppose every effort they make to destroy our children and our families, our churches, our businesses. We just got to stand up and do it. And we invite those who share those values to join in. If you don't have time, send a few dollars. If you don't have a few dollars, volunteer a few hours. If you can't, just get on 5 minutes on social media and make a statement.
Absolutely.
Be like Laura Bean.
Yes. Everybody has a voice. Everybody should have a voice. We all have different strengths and abilities. And like we were talking about earlier, we can't always all be everywhere at once. Like, we are passionate about certain things for a reason. I truly believe that. And we should follow those, because those are our abilities. And it's not a coincidence that we are on this earth in these crazy, wild times that actually I'm kind of excited to be here during these times. it doesn't bother me, the craziness necessarily. I think it's actually a privilege to be a part of this in some small capacity. And I feel like you feel the same. You seem like a fellow warrior spirit.
Yeah, like I say, from my early years, I was passionate about these things. And so even if I want to walk away from it, I couldn't. I have to do what I can. I'd like to be able to enjoy retirement and church service and things like that. But it's good to be in the fight, and thank you for all you do, and I'm glad to be on the show. It's a little bit risky here. We're revealing the truth here.
Yeah.
But that's who we are.
I've already been shut down once on YouTube.
That's what we're about.
Where can people get more info on you? Do you have a campaign website or just phone number they can get a hold of you?
MyersForUtah.com or 668-6292.
Awesome.
Area code 435. Yeah, so I'm happy to visit with people.
Thanks so much, Larry. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for being a part of the Michelle Tanner Podcast. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share. And always remember to keep exposing truth.
But I won't back down. No, I won't back down.
This has been a production from a podcast studio.